Stephen here, happy Friday. Forgive the hat, it's turned decidedly autumnal here in London. Not cold enough for the heating, I'll put that off for a good long while yet. But yeah, definitely turned a bit chilly and rainy. So, wrapping up to keep warm. Cheers. Excuse me. Smoking my bumblebee pipe. It's a cheap Ukrainian pearwood pipe. Obviously in Eastern Europe they use pearwood a lot, alternative woods to briar, and I've got a few pearwood pipes, mainly Mr. Brog, which apart from the stems are of pretty good quality. These are not great quality. It's alright now, but until it's heated up and got quite a way down the bowl and the shank has swollen up, the stem rattles around it. Look. Certainly smokable and very cheap. And in it I've got Revor plug once again. I'm coming to the end of the bowl, but I've already got another pipe preloaded down there. So if circumstances dictate, I can put this one down and light that one up. And I'm drinking. Cheers. You can tell the autumn's coming on. I'm drinking some Shepherd Neame 1698, named for the year that the brewery was established. Britain's oldest established brewery since 1698, down in Kent, not far from me. It's a bottle conditioned beer. But I don't mind that, I don't mind a bit of sediment in my beer, I think it adds to the flavour. .5% ABV, which is very nice. Cheers once again. Now then, what am I listening to? Can you tell what it is yet? I've done that so many times before, it's not funny anymore. And it won't mean anything to anyone outside the UK. The Doors. Great album. Of course I bought it when it was released. I was only 11 years old when this was released. I wasn't that cool and advanced. I mean, I own a copy of Sgt. Pepper, which was released later on the same... Yeah, later on the same year. But that was a particular circumstance in which I've recounted before, in which me and my two sisters put our pocket money in together and bought it between us, and I've ended up with it. That's the oldest album that I actually bought at the time that I own. But yeah, I was only 11 when this came out. I was still playing with toy soldiers and making model aeroplanes. I think it was, yeah, I think it had just come out the year before. I was playing a lot with something that we here in the UK called Action Man, but it was an American toy. It was made by Palitoy, and in the States it was called G.I. Joe, and it was quite a revolution. Up until then, we played with little plastic toy soldiers. You know, there were no moving parts. They were all dressed and everything. You could paint them, but that was about it. And Action Man stroke G.I. Joe came along, and that was quite a revolution. Bit of controversy at the time, I seem to recall, because it's boys playing with dolls that you can dress up. Outrageous. Only girls play with dolls and do dressing up. Load of cobblers. These things, Action Man stroke G.I. Joe, for those that I'm sure many of you know anyway, but they had articulated limbs. They were about that big, and you could get all these different uniforms and equipment for them. German uniforms, Japanese, American, British, sailors, airmen, the whole lot. It was fantastic. I loved it. And what you could do, I seem to remember when you bought the uniforms, there were like tokens, stars, I think they were stars, you could cut out. And when you collected enough, you sent them off and you got another Action Man back. Just a basic Action Man in the fatigues, that was it. And I obviously spent so much of my pocket money on these things. I ended up with 3 of them. A big box of stuff, uniforms, the whole bit. Guns, the M1, the grease gun. The Germans had the Schmeisser machine pistol. That was great. To love, I could play with them for hours. And of course you've got knockoff uniforms as well that you could buy much cheaper. I remember having a deep sea diver, with the helmet, you know, on the top, the big deep sea diving helmet. I think it was great. It encouraged the imagination, which is important in children. You've got to stimulate their imagination. Which I worry about these days with the fixation on video games. I'm not sure how much that does actually encourage them to think things through for themselves and make believe scenarios with the toys they're playing with. But then I'm probably just being an old fart, and no doubt 40 years from now someone else will be sitting in front of whatever space age thing they've got. But they won't have a bloody phone on a tripod. Complaining about how things were much better in their day. It's the nature of the world. But yeah, really enjoyed my Action Men and playing with them, and my mates would come round and we'd have these games. And as for this whole doll thing and dressing up, it comes back to the whole nature or nurture argument. Whether you are born with instincts that direct you towards a certain kind of play, or whether it's actually influenced by your parents, by your peers who have been influenced by their parents. I'm very much of the nurture opinion. I think even if we do it subliminally, we steer our children down a certain path. Tried not to do it with my girls. Always said, you know, You can do anything that a boy can do, you can do anything that a man can do. You know, you don't have to be this. This isn't the way your life is being dictated for you. You can do whatever you want to do. But then again, you might be a lone wolf in terms of the parents in that respect. And when they go to school, they go to nursery, the peer group pressure, and of course the advertising on television, all directs them in down a certain path. Girls aren't born with this desire to wear pink clothes. It's foisted on them. That said, and you might not agree with me, which is fair enough, there is a difference in the way the two genders play. I mean, I only had two girls, but they had boys they were friends with at primary school, elementary school, and you could notice, and at nursery too, before preschool, nursery, you could notice a difference in the way that they played. Girls would be more thoughtful, they'd be talking, they'd be communicating with each other, resolving problems through dialogue. With boys, and although I didn't have any boys, I was a boy once myself many years ago. It was more about who's going to be the alpha male in the group, who's going to be top dog, who's going to dictate what everyone else does. That's a bit controversial, you might not agree. I can only say though, I love my girls, and I was very happy that I had daughters. I was almost worried about having a son. That might sound strange, but you have to understand that I was the only son of my parents. I had two sisters. And I've recounted many times before, my dad was not interested, so I didn't have any interaction with my father. I had no real male role model. And in fairness to him, he hadn't either. I've said before, his own father died of TB when my dad was only 2 years old, and he had no surviving male siblings. So he was raised by his mother and his 7 or 8 sisters, an entirely female household. And I've no doubt he was the little prince. Yeah, he was spoiled rotten. But not having known his own father, I don't think he knew how to relate to his own son. And then not having a close relationship with my father, I don't think I would have known how to relate to a boy of my own. Who knows? There's no way of saying. But there you go. On the psychiatrist's couch again. Life is such a bloody tangled web. Now then, this track, The End. I played this side in particular for this track. As I say, I didn't buy this album when it came. I bought it a few years later. First got into the Doors around about LA Woman time, Riders of the Storm, and that would have been when I got the album. But this track always makes me think of one of my all-time favourite films, which was called Apocalypse Now. I had to check out, I thought I knew when it was, but I checked out when it was released in the UK, which was December 1979, about a week before Christmas. I remember the day it was released, me and my girlfriend and my sister and her boyfriend, we went to the cinema to see it. And I sat there, I was blown away by that film. There'd never been anything like it, and I've loved it ever since. I had it on DVD, which I watch every now and again. I got the box set which has that. It has the Redux version, which I didn't like. Redux, it was essentially the director's cut, and I thought it spoiled it. I just didn't like that at all. But I only ever watched it once. I may watch it again and see if I have a different viewpoint. And maybe it was just the fact that it interfered with my memories of that very first viewing of the original production. But I didn't know that. And it's also got, I can't remember what it's called, but the documentary about the making of the film, which is worth seeing in itself. But Martin Sheen had a heart attack. Marlon Brando turned up so obese that he had to use a body double in any full body shots. But fantastic film. And I was so knocked out by it, I must have talked my bloody head off afterwards. Because that year, I say it was a week before Christmas, and my brother-in-law went down to Chinatown, Soho, up in the middle of London, and he bought me this, which I've treasured ever since, which I love. I'm not a Buddhist, I don't mean any insult to Buddhists. It wasn't so much the fact that this was Buddha, it was the Marlon Brando character that led him to buy for me. The colours have faded, it was really quite garish but beautiful when I first had it. And I've loved this ever since. Nearly 40 years now. I don't know what I've talked about. I don't know how I fill the time up. So there you go. Another stream of consciousness from the silly old fool. I'm going to go off now, drink this, and I might even pop Apocalypse Now on the box and watch that. It's been a while. May even watch the Redux version, but it's not the Apocalypse Now that I love. I may speak to you again tomorrow. Who knows? Who can say? What can happen? A lot can happen in 24 hours. In the meantime, I wish you well. Keep the comments going because I love reading them. I read every single one. And I try to respond to everyone as well because for me that's part of the whole experience. He took a face from the ancient gallery and he walked on down the hall. They don't make music like this anymore. Take care all. Speak to you again soon. Ta-ra.